Project Veritas people, they are doing the last of the real journalism. I mean, and I mean the last of the real journalism in the sense that absolute pure investigative journalism that used to be the norm back in the day. I used to watch 60 Minutes with my parents, and they used to have the person come in with, a briefcase that had a camera. They had the cameras in the hat. They had undercover people, recording to get the CEOs of the company making admissions that they knew that they were peddling tainted products. That used to be the standard. I mean, until the media became the mouthpieces of the government, until they became so politically weaponized that they became the tools of their political party and not what they were intended to be, which is a service to the people. And then what ends up happening is, when they get subsidized by the government directly or indirectly, they no longer have any loyalty to quality. They just have loyalty to party. But James O'Keefe is still doing the absolute legit journalism, undercover. It's not all bombshell stuff. Some of it is stronger than others, but some of it is damn strong. Some of it is so strong, in fact, that the FBI and the Department of Justice and all the other weaponized, branches of government are going after them with a sledgehammer. They're using the government apparatus to go after them. They're using the media apparatus to go after them. And luckily, and I say luckily, the courts seem to have been upholding the judicial apparatus in terms of the treatment of Project Veritas, both as plaintiff and as defendant. They had a bit of a setback this week with CNN, where their defamation lawsuit against CNN was dismissed because the judge said, when CNN said that Project Veritas, or James O'Keefe, I forget which exactly, I think it was Project Veritas, when CNN said that they were kicked off Twitter for providing misinformation, when the real reason that they were allegedly kicked off Twitter was because Twitter alleged that they had provided private information. The court said, substitute the false for the true, and the damage would have been the same. Accuse a journalist of getting booted off a platform for having provided misinformation. That's just as damaging to their reputation as accusing them of having gotten booted from a platform for providing confidential or private information. To which I would have swiftly said, horse manure. Judicial manure is what that is. Calling a journalist a liar is much different than saying that they leaked private information. Much different. One impugns their integrity as a journalist. The other impugns their judgment or their honor as a human. Okay, I met you, Viva. I know you're a good person and would never interpret or say a bad thing about you. Thank you. Hope that book helped. Tell me which book it was. I got a lot of books. A lot of them were Bibles. One of them was about politics. But thank you very much. And either way, I've got pretty thick skin. And the other problem is a lot of time people take things more seriously than they're intended to be taken. I try to assume most things are jest, and I try to hope that people assume most things that I say are said with love, respect, and even if we disagree, mutual respect. Okay, so they had that CNN lawsuit defamation case tossed. We'll see if they appeal it. It's preposterous to me, but I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. And I like to say that I was wrong for the right reasons, but I was still wrong. That case should not have been tossed, but we'll see. This is not about the CNN case. This is not even about their defamation case against the New York Times, which is still ongoing. This is about Ashley Biden's diary. Many people did not even know prior to it wasn't even prior to the election, because I don't think I knew that Joe Biden had a daughter during the election. I think most people discovered this afterwards. Probably a lot of people knew beforehand. Joe Biden's got a daughter. His son, Beau Biden, passed away. He's got Hunter Biden. Everybody knows about Hunter Biden, but I don't think people have seen Hunter Biden in a while. People are asking themselves, where is Hunter? But that's a separate issue. He has a daughter, Ashley Biden, and by all accounts, they don't clean something off my computer here. By all accounts, they don't seem to have a good relationship. And I'm not projecting and I'm not imputing intentions. They don't seem to have had a good relationship, especially from what is alleged to have been in that diary. But so Ashley Biden is Joe Biden's daughter. We discovered her, those of us who did not know that Joe had a daughter, because it was about, I'm going to get mixed up on the timeline. It doesn't really matter, except for the critical stuff on which I will not get mistaken on the timeline. It was during the election period-ish. Anonymous sources reach out to Project Veritas and say, we stumbled across Ashley Biden's diary, abandoned, forgotten, whatever, left over in an Airbnb, apparently, along with some other personal belongings of Ashley Biden. Would you like to have a look at it and see if it's newsworthy for you to publish? So Project Veritas receives this. I mean, literally, I think it's a bag of stuff, a diary and some other stuff from these anonymous tipsters who are doing their business through attorneys, which is also, in my mind, this is why I can't practice law anymore, because I have difficulty trusting anybody. This I would have never touched in a million years, but I'm not an investigative journalist like James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, and I don't have the same threshold for dealing with this stuff. This would have smelled like a stink to me from the beginning, where I would never, just leave me alone. No, thank you, keep it. But Project Veritas takes the diary, they look it over. They, according to their own story here, are unable to authenticate the diary, and they choose not to publish it. Now, I'm always fully transparent. Apparently, at roughly the same time, someone might know where this diary was in fact published. Apparently, the diary was nonetheless published somewhere else. It was on a conservative website, and I'm not saying that for political reasons. Let me just see if I can find where it was published. Someone might know in the chat. Ashley, but I'm not sharing it because I heard it was in that diary, and I'm not interested in Ashley Biden diary published. And it was published on Conservative Voice. Does that sound right? You got Salon. I'm never going to find it in any ordinary search results. Let's see if I put in the word conservative. It was published somewhere. So some people might say conservative groups acquisition. All right. Some people might say that, they might accuse Project Veritas of discreetly, indirectly leaking the diary on another publication. I don't believe it, because why would they have done that? They're not. Project Veritas is not after malice. If they were going to leak it, they're not going to leak it. They're not going to do that in a way that's going to impugn their reputation as journalists, period. So some people might think that, fine, just full disclosure. It was published somewhere else. The release of the privileged info related to Project Veritas by the FBI to the New York Times is one of the highest criminal acts that seem to be protected by our courts. We'll get there. And we're going to see in the meantime if anybody in the chat knew. It wasn't Revolver. It wasn't Gateway Pundit. Oh, I want to say Conservative National File. That's where it was. Thank you, Dustin. That's 1,000% the name. It was published in National File. So I don't know I don't know the backstory to that. I doubt that James O'Keefe or Project Veritas would have deliberately done that. It's conceivable that a disgruntled individual might have leaked it once they determined that Project Veritas was not going to publish it. Project Veritas says no go on this. We can't verify its authenticity. Can't do it. Take it back. When things get even more suspicious, apparently the lawyers say we're not taking it back. We don't want it. So it's like a bag of dog crap. Like, sorry, you got it. I'm not taking that back. Or you give them the weapon that's been used in a crime, and they say, well, take this weapon back. It's like, what weapon? I'm not taking this back. So the lawyer said we're not taking it back. Project Veritas then says, well, we got nothing. What are we going to do with this? We're going to give it to the FBI and say, look, we don't want this. This anonymous tipster doesn't want it back. Neither do their lawyers. You take it. Do what you will with it. It was a year later, Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, and two former journalists. I don't think they were journalists at the time. Hot potato. It's a potato people will take, or at least you juggle, because it'll still be good afterwards. But a potato, no one's taken. It was about a year later. James O'Keefe and two former journalists get raided. It was the two journalists first, then James O'Keefe. Pre-dawn raid. I've also seen the Wikipedia description of me. It's don't go to Wikipedia for description of anyone who's who thinks that there might actually be a definition of the term woman. So a year later they raid two former journalists. A week later they raid James O'Keefe. Pre-dawn, it's a dawn raid. I don't know if it's I don't know when pre-dawn starts. 6 o'clock in the morning. From what I understand, James is in his underwear. He recently released some of the footage. They come with armed, hands in the air, put hands in the air, yelling at James O'Keefe. They seize. Sorry, they don't steal. They seize his cell phone, and They seized his cell phone, which contains not just journalistic information, not just sources, which is typically not just protected, but like the most protected of all protected information. It contains privileged information between him and his lawyer, privileged correspondence between him and his lawyer. James O'Keefe petitions the court. I'm giving a very long-winded description here, but we'll get into the document. The document will read faster once I bring it up. They petition the court to appoint what is known as a special master. In theory, an independent third party who's not part of the plaintiff, prosecution, not part of the defense, to safeguard the information at issue, to do the triage, to sift through it, to make sure that the FBI, the DOD, Department of Justice, the prosecution does not get access to privileged confidential information that they're not entitled to have access to without a court authorizing it, or irrelevant information that they might want but might have nothing to do with the object of their seizure. Annalisa Torres, the Judge Annalisa Torres, grants the motion for a special master she gave strict orders to this special master as to what to do with the information, what to do with the phones, what to do with all the stuff, how to protect the potentially privileged confidential information. And she issues that order. Subsequently issues an order that, not only did the court appoint a special master, but James O'Keefe and Project Veritas themselves don't have to pay the $45,000 for this special master. The government does. Okay. Well, what did James O'Keefe and Project Veritas just discover the other day? I'm going to quote someone else so that I don't get accused of. My biggest concern is I might know things that I might know things that I do not disclose, that I cannot disclose. And my biggest phobia in life is accidentally disclosing something that I'm not supposed to disclose. Same thing as with a lawyer. When I was a lawyer, it's like out of respect to people, out of confidentiality. So I'm just going to go to Lara Logan. Let me just make sure that we're in tandem here. And we are. Now let me bring this down, bring this back up. Lara Logan, breaking. DOJ spied on journalists, emails via sealed search warrants and non-disclosure orders. Microsoft legal docs reveal Department of Justice repeatedly concealed possession of privileged communications from federal judge. And then you got the link. Go watch it. In fact, you know what I'm going to do right now? Copy. Yeah, hold on. I'll do this actually, and I'll stop it. I'm going to close it. Okay. I'm going to close it. I'm not going to play this because it's their work, and I would not be able to play a small enough portion without playing the entire thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and now you can go ahead and watch it. But this it's going to blow your freaking minds, people, because there is no other word for it other than abject corruption. And it's very important to appreciate why. Stop sharing. It's very important to appreciate why the special master was appointed in the first place. The special master was appointed because James O'Keefe successfully argued in front of a federal judge, Judge Annalisa Torres, that the FBI, whoever it is, DOJ, prosecution, they seized and are in possession of my cell phone, which they know contains confidential information, sources, privileged communications between counsel and attorney. The FBI or the prosecution's argument against the appointment of the special master was that Project Veritas, they're not journalists. And they went to say they're not journalists so that their communications, they're, not informants, but their sources, not confidential because they're not journalists. And they went furthermore to say that I forget the exact argument, but that we still have access. We should still have right to access their solicitor-client communications, which are privileged constitutionally above and beyond being a journalist. So it's even more privileged than journalist communications. It's the backbone. It's a pillar. It's a underlying principle of a law-abiding society, that people can freely discourse with their attorneys, with their mandated counsel, without fear of that being compellable communications. Otherwise, society falls apart. And I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic at all. That's if you cannot have privileged and confidential communications with your attorney, the legal system falls apart, and necessarily in due course, the entire system falls apart. So that's the reason for which they appointed the special master. The special master was appointed by a federal court to safeguard privileged and confidential information that the FBI had seized that they might not be entitled to access. What does James O'Keefe discover? Project Veritas, what did they discover? Prior to this, the FBI, now might be a time to bring up the document so that I do not mangle this. Share screen, Windows. Okay, I got to go like this. And then I believe if I bring this here, yes, entire screen. No, not entire screen, window app. Share. And now let me just make sure that I'm only seeing, I want to make sure not to pull up a portion of the document. It's a public document anyhow, but I just don't want to pull up anything that could be construed as an address because there is whatever, lawyer's address. Maybe I'm denying them publicity because they're doing great work. But here, Judge in re search warrant dated November 5, 2021. Let me, spoiler alert. Project Veritas discovered that the FBI, through other secret confidential search warrants, had obtained the very same, if not more, privileged and confidential information by subpoenaing and searching Outlook and getting emails from Project Veritas prior to the seizure. And they renewed the secrecy orders of those prior search warrants. They renewed them, the secrecy orders, so that they couldn't be disclosed publicly after Judge Annalisa Torres issued her special master appointment. So they're basically saying the bottom line, the FBI is like, enjoy your special master and all the protections they're giving to those documents on your cell phone, because we already have all of them. And Judge Annalisa Torres doesn't know, and we are renewing secrecy orders so that she will never know that the order that she issued in this case for a special master is not even worth toilet paper. I mean, at some point, toilet paper was worth a lot, so maybe that's not a good analogy. It's worthless because that which is the object of that special master, we have through a variety of other means. And not only did we not disclose it to you, Judge, we actively, after you issued your order, sought that it continue to be withheld from your knowledge. That is the level of respect we have for you, Justice Torres. We write to request preliminary relief for multiple government seizures of news gathering, attorney-client privilege, and personal materials from Project Veritas and its journalists, separate and apart from the warrants that are the subject of this court's December 8, 2021 order. I don't think we need to read this because we already covered that. Compounding the privilege violation arising from this invasion, the seizure of the phones, the government also muzzled Microsoft with a series of, we might have to go back and read this. Sorry, this is the critical paragraph. We have recently learned, however, that the government already had in place mechanisms for circumventing these protective processes and invading the First Amendment and attorney-client privileges of Project Veritas and its journalists, the existence of which the government concealed from counsel for Project Veritas and its journalists, and we believe from this court. By the way, this is how you politely, discreetly tell a judge that a party has made a fool of him or her. They're basically saying these people lied to you through omission, and not only did they not tell you something that you might have had a mild interest in knowing because it might have governed subsequent court orders, they deliberately, behind your back, sought to renew those very secrecy orders to prevent you from learning this and finding out that you just issued an order that was worthless. That we made you talk for nothing and we embarrassed you. We have discovered that from November 20 to April 2021, the government used compulsory demands, including secret warrants and 18 USC. Do I look that up? Better. Hold on. This I can't toggle too easily between too many windows. Let's just see what I'll read it out loud. 2703 D USC. Yeah. USC here. USC 2703 D. Required disclosure of customer communications or records. And we'll go to 20. What was it? It was 2703 D. B. The reason why laws are drafted so long and convolutedly is so that lawyers can maintain their monopoly on the practice. Because if laws were drafted for people to read and understand, lawyers might be out of a job. This is so convoluted, I can't even find the subparagraph D. Bear with me, people. There are like 15 subparagraphs. Here's E. Okay. Requirements for court order. A court order for disclosure under subsection B or C may be issued by any court. All right, whatever. I'm not doing it. You'll look it up by yourselves. Required disclosure of customer communications or records. I mean, that's the bottom line of what we are now learning. I want to refer to them properly. The government. I mean, they're saying the government. So it's the FBI or the Department of Justice, whatever. They go to Outlook and they say, we need, give us some client communications here. Voluminous records from Microsoft, the email service provider used by Project Veritas, spanning the email accounts of 8 journalists and Project Veritas human resources manager. This means that by the time the undersigned filed the motion to appoint a special master on November 10, 2021, the government had already seized Project Veritas's journalistic and attorney-client privileged materials without regard to topic of the aforementioned privileges and far outside the relevant time period. So appreciate this. My understanding from the orders that the government got against Outlook, that it wasn't even specifically related to the diary. It was everything. And it wasn't even everything as temporally limited to the diary. It was 8 months prior to. So basically, everything. Just let's see what Project Veritas and their journalists and their human resources people, let's see what they're talking about. Lives of others, people. The lives of others. Just spying on people. So this is what they're asking for. Okay, this is what they're requesting, which is the important part. The government apparently disdains the free press and candor to the court and opposing counsel. They're liars. This is the polite way of calling someone a bold-faced liar with no respect to the court. For the court, sorry. In light of the government's violations of Project Veritas' First Amendment journalistic and attorney-client privileges, as well as the government's attendant failure to disclose these matters before or during the litigation of our motion for appointment of a special master, Project Veritas, I would love to be in court when this goes down, requested the court pursuant to its powers, yada, 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 enter an order requiring the government to A1, immediately halt, access, review, investigative use of Project Veritas materials that the government obtained from Microsoft, inform this court and counsel whether the government used a filter team. Tell us what they did with that information when they got it. How did they go through it? Just read it all. Inform this court and counsel of the identities of any prosecutors, agents, or other members of the investigative team who have reviewed any data seized from Microsoft. Disclose to the court counsel identity of any other third party to which the government issued demands for Project Veritas data under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, with or without non-disclosure order. And then we get into the detail, but let's just see the amazing stuff is this is what they've issued. This is who they issued it against. And this is how long it was issued for. The time period, emails through subpoena. And I believe the non-disclosure order, they got a non-disclosure order so that Outlook or their employees could not talk about it. And it was initially 1 year and extended 180 days. And my understanding is they sought and obtained the extension from other courts after the judge in their special master case issued the special master with those requirements. Let's just see here. I didn't highlight the other sections. I mean, you can go through it. It's wonderful. It's long, actually not that long anyhow. How many pages was it? It's long, but it describes it. And it sets out the law. It sets out the outrage, and it is outrageous. The government's secrecy orders and its failure to disclose that it had already obtained Project Veritas's privileged material. The government obtained 2705 secrecy orders. Let's just go ahead and, well, I mean, we know what those are. That prevented Microsoft from disclosing the existence of the government's demands, which in turn rendered Project Veritas unable to protect its privileges from the government's prying eyes. I'm reading this in James O'Keefe's voice. I don't know who else is doing that. To justify its extraordinary invasion of the rights of the free press. I mean, James didn't, I suspect he didn't draft this, so I'm just reading it in his voice. The government made boilerplate recitations that its diary investigation would be jeopardized. A specious concern as it continued its non-disclosure orders long after Project Veritas was aware that the government's bad faith of the... They're saying that if they had disclosed their investigation into an abandoned diary, let that just sink in there. This is not international violence. This is an allegedly stolen diary, by all accounts abandoned, but I think at this point we can probably now assume that this diary and its contents are as legitimate as Hunter Biden's computer and its contents, which might explain this wicked, weaponized government acting secretly, exploiting the judicial system in secret for the benefit of the very government that's in power. I mean, people have to appreciate what is going on here. And when they talk about boilerplates, I mean, I don't know what the threshold for these secrecy orders are in the United States. I mean, I know what they would be for here if you're talking about a Mariva injunction where you got to get the injunction without even disclosing the existence of the proceedings to the party because you're afraid they're going to destroy all the evidence. So you need to go get a secret court order authorizing the seizure before anything happens without even notifying the party. So ex parte. If it's anything analogous to that, and I suspect it is, the threshold is high, not boilerplate allegations. We think that they will destroy the evidence if we notify them. Therefore, exception to, public notification, exceptions to the basic rule of law. And then they talk about the criteria. So to survive strict scrutiny, the government's speech restraints like 18 USC, we're talking about like violations of people's right to know what's going on, right to represent themselves. The secrecy orders must be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling government interest. We know those criteria, and must do so through the least restrictive means of achieving that interest. Okay. Because a core purpose of the First Amendment is to protect the free discussion of government affairs. Speech about this government activity is entitled to special protection and rests on the highest rung of the hierarchy of First Amendment values. I love the way these are drafted. It's interesting. The procedure here, they're drafting by way of letters to the judge and not by way of proceedings with allegations. So it reads like a letter, but it reads well. Okay, I think we're getting close to the relevant parts that we wanted to cover. Oh, well, this is fun. This was not a matter, by the way, I can't see the chats coming in, but maybe if I go like this, that would too late. This was not a matter of the government passively allowing secrecy orders to maintain in place. This is the important thing. They didn't just hide their past wrong conduct. They ratified their past wrong conduct with current wrong conduct. Rather, the government affirmatively sought and obtained 4 extensions of its secrecy orders even after its diary investigation was public and the special master litigation began. In fact, the government made 2 of its 4 requests. So you got 4 after this whole thing is public now. So the risk of destruction of evidence, that argument would ostensibly fail. 2 of its 4 requests were made after this court's order granting the aggrieved journalist motion. An abbreviated chronology makes the government's utter lack of justification for continued secrecy. Okay, I think we went through this as well. 11/19/90. It doesn't. We've got the timeline. This is why. Look, we got the timeline. The bottom line is, after the special master was appointed, the judge goes and gets a secrecy order renewed in front of another judge. Because what do you think might have happened if they tried to get that secrecy order renewed by Judge Annalisa Torres? She'd say, like, I'm sorry, what secrecy order was in place in the first place? I'm sorry, what documents do you have in your possession that are governed by the secrecy order that the special master is not controlling the triage of? So I think that's basically it. Conclusion, I'm not going to go further because there's some exhibits and I'm not sure that I don't want to take chances on them being public. I think they are public, but I don't care. Because Project Veritas researched a potential news story about what Ashley Biden's diary recounted about her father, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which we know is the most, by all accounts, the most non-corrupt, non-politicized office out there. They launched a retributive campaign that does violence to the First Amendment. As far as we know, as far as we know, the federal government has never before investigated an abandoned diary. I think that's a safe bet. Moreover, the government's diary investigation has included extreme measures that violate the First Amendment and corrode freedom of the press. The litigation before this court began when the government searched journalists' home and seized electronic devices containing privileged materials. While the special master litigation proceeded, the government apparently misled the court by omission, failing to inform it and failing to inform the aggrieved journalists that it had already obtained the contents of privileged emails from Microsoft. There might be an argument that what they got with the Outlook warrants was not the same as was on the cell phones. I doubt it, because if they're using, there might be additional stuff on the cell phones, but I would venture that which one would cover the other? You would have Outlook on the phones, but you might not have all of the phones on the Outlook. But bottom line is there's an overlap, and they hid it from the judge. The litigation, where were we? I forgot this. Okay, they've already obtained the privilege. Okay. The government concealed its past privilege invasions through unjustified secrecy orders, which it moved to extend even while the special master litigation was pending. These abuses of power must not go unpunished. The free press must not go unprotected. That's that. And we're going to have James and I believe his attorney as well. Let me bring this out. We're going to have James and his attorney on tomorrow to go over this. Outrageous. I want to see if I can get back a little bit and pick up some super chats that I might have missed. Did you guys see the bill introduced to stop Americans from buying Russian gold? Very broad extension of power. And what do we got here? The New York Times just confirmed the diary authentic. Did they really? I mean, I know they just confirmed the Hunter Biden laptop after they and other intelligence officers said it was Russia misinformation. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see what the comments were that I might have missed. Project Veritas wanted to verify the authenticity of that. Knock, knock, knock. This is the FBI. Yeah, the diary is authentic. And look, I haven't read it. I just know what it says. Hold on, I'm gonna cough now. Let the jokes in the chat begin. I had carbonated water. Anyway, so that's it. I mean, it's that's where they're at. I don't know how it goes procedurally. I don't know if they can seek sanctions. I mean, I know they're seeking court orders that are protective and, that the court punished them. I mean, sanctions, contempt. This is what I'm going to ask James O'Keefe and his lawyer, Jared Eade, I think is going to be the lawyer tomorrow. Go to Rumble, someone said. I would ask what sanctions they can get. And I would ask if this is ex facie contempt. We're 3,700 watching on Rumble. Booyah. Privacy falls under unreasonable search and seizure. This is Ubuk. Love you all. Wake up, Domino 7. Impeach Biden. Veristopes. Okay, so there's no Rumble rants here. I'm not reading some of these. Yeah, so if you guys want to read what the diary might have been about, Rumble might be the place. But no, it's. I mean, I wonder if it's not contemptuous, ex facie contempt, or even in facie contempt, ex facie out of court, which typically is failing to abide by a court order. I mean, is that not what we're at right now? And do I care that this is my? I got 3 questions. People remind me for tomorrow. That one, is it contempt? What sanctions can they get? But also, did they not disclose to the other judges the appointment of the special master? Like, what was pleaded in the context of those secrecy orders, the 2 renewals that they got after the special master was appointed? Did they disclose that to the courts? And then the other question is, even if they didn't disclose that to the court, it may not be judicial knowledge because you don't presume every judge knows what every other judge has issued by way of ruling, but would they not have known about this given the high profile nature of the case? Did those 4 judges, it would have been 2 judges. Did the judges, or may have been 1 judge, I don't know, maybe they made those 2 orders in front of the same judge. Did the judge who renewed the secrecy orders, the 2 that were made after the appointment of the special master, did they know of the existence of the special master? Did they know about that court file? And if they did, how do they justify extending a secrecy order that governs or that might encompass documents that were protected by the special master order? Or did they lie to multiple judges? We'll see. I'll ask that tomorrow. It's the worst shirt I've ever designed. And I'm in discussion now. When I had asked previously if anybody knew of a all-in-one platform that can handle all merch above and beyond shirts in a way that I'd have hands off and just like, here's the logo, put it on mugs, whatever people want to order, preferably made in Canada or at least made in America. A few people reached out and I've reached out to them. We're going to see if we can do this, but this is what I did on Representing. At least I didn't make a typo on the back. Remember, I don't know that. I'm going to have to Google that. Cameron, thank you. Nice to see you again, sir. Can't talk about that either. Makes you a Russian Putin apologist. And someone, anyhow. All right. Yeah, that's one of the themes. The theories out there is, it's over until midterms, or it's over and there's going to be a midterm variant or a 2024 variant. Okay, so that's it. So that's the latest in Project Veritas. It's outrageous. Yep. Let me see. There was other stuff to discuss. Share screen. I had some other windows up. So I got the Lara Logan. Oh, you know what? Let's pull up an article here. No, that's YouTube. So we already went with that one. Oh, that's right. The ACLU statement. By the way, it's good that I take notes. I'm senile. It's so egregious, by the way, that the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, which has been questionable these days. It was so bad that they had to come out with a public statement. And let me see. Yeah, no, I'll donate to charities that I feel stronger in. Okay, we're good. We're lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and close this document and bring this one up. Okay, close. Save to desktop. Sure, why not? Okay, here it is. ACLU comment on allegations of federal law enforcement secretly accessing Project Veritas emails. March 22, 2022. The following is a statement from Brian House, senior staff attorney with the ACLU's Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project in response to allegations. What happens if I click this? Let me just see here. Politico. Okay, good. In response to allegations from Project Veritas that prosecutors misled a federal court and sought unwarranted gag orders during a federal investigation of the group's ties to the alleged theft of a diary. This sounds like the Breakfast Club mystery, like the mystery of the stolen diary. It's a kid's book. This is not federal stuff here. Sorry, I haven't actually read this in total. Okay, by the way, even when agreeing with your enemy, you have to start off by insulting your enemy. We deplore Project Veritas's deceptions, and we don't have a full picture of the government's investigation. We deplore Project Veritas's deceptions. Are they going to get a lawsuit for defamation for their public statements supporting the Project Veritas? What deceptions, Mr. House? Mr. House in the House, what deceptions? But leave that alone. We deplore Project Veritas's deceptions, and we don't have a full picture of the government's investigation. But we're concerned that the precedent set by this case could have serious consequences for press freedom. Something tells me that maybe Mr. House and the ACLU have some compromising emails that they don't want government officials secretly obtaining. So maybe they're not actually protecting Project Veritas here. They're out protecting themselves. Maybe. Although I do appreciate Oni soit qui mal y pense. Someone can accuse me of that. Someone can accuse me of confession through projection. I take for granted every text message and every email I ever write, send, receive, or view is being viewed by somebody else. I've always taken that for granted. Okay. We're deeply troubled by reports that the Department of Justice obtained secret electronic surveillance orders requiring sweeping disclosure of, quote, all content, end quote, of communications associated with Project Veritas email accounts, including attorney-client communications. Compounding these concerns, the government suppressed suppressed information about the existence of the electronic surveillance orders, even after the investigation became public knowledge and the district court appointed a special master to supervise prosecutors' access to Project Veritas sensitive materials. The government must immediately suspend its review of the materials obtained. Unsee it, government. Unsee all of that. Unsee your obtaining solicitor-client privilege. Unsee the names of informants or sources for Project Veritas. Do not go after them. And if anybody goes after them, I'm sure it was just the administration of justice operating the way it worked. It must immediately suspend its review of the materials obtained pursuant to its electronic surveillance orders and fully disclose the extent of its actions so the court can consider appropriate relief. Very nice. Beautiful. Beautiful. We deplore Project Veritas's deception. You know what? I deplore your presumption of ignorance, ACLU. You could have done just the right thing, but instead you got to do the right thing like an idiot.